What's the point here? I mean, you say at one point Republicans tend to exhibit anti-intellectual qualities. Democrats, on the other hand, coalesce on the intellectual tail of the continuum. So is the point that Republicans are stupid and Democrats are intellectual? Interesting. It's a piece on rhetoric, but you attribute part of the anti-intellectualism of the Republican Party to, in your words, the rise of the religious right. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that. Is it because those voters are stupid? So do you think that people who voted for Donald Trump are anti-intellectual?
Thank you, Senator. I would not make any judgment on the people who voted for President Trump or any other president.
So you don't think the people who voted for Dwight Eisenhower or Ronald Reagan or George W. Bush, they weren't anti-intellectual? The anti-intellectual rhetoric just appealed to them because what? What's your theory?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. As I said, presidents are able to speak in common sense, plain terms to Americans that they understand.
So you characterize President Reagan as having, quote, less than impressive intellectual capacities. You said President Eisenhower and Bush were decidedly intellectual. You said Reagan engaged in intellectual posture.
Welcome back, Patriots. Senator Josh Hawley just delivered the takedown of the year, exposing a Democratic judicial nominee who published an academic article calling Republican voters and presidents anti-intellectual. Armed with her own 17-year-old publication, Hawley systematically dismantled her claims of nonpartisanship, confronting her with damning quotes about Reagan, Eisenhower, and 75 million Trump voters. Watch as this confirmation hearing turns into a masterclass in accountability. The nominee tries to hide behind academic jargon and bureaucratic evasions, but Hawley's relentless preparation leaves no escape route. From characterizing Reagan as having less than impressive intellectual capacities, to attributing Republican success to exploiting the stupid masses, her own words become the smoking gun evidence of her extreme partisan bias. This isn't just another political moment. This is about defending the dignity and intelligence of every American against elitist contempt. Let's dive in.
I was troubled, I have to say, by this article that you wrote that Senator Portman asked you about a minute ago, published by the American Political Science Association. I have it here, Anti-Intellectualism in the Modern Presidency, Republican Populism, published in June of 2007. Do you consider this piece to be nonpartisan?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I consider it to be an academic article, publication of 16, 17 years ago, a scholarly piece.
Yeah, let's dig into it a little bit. You write in your paper that to combat allegations of elitism, recent Republican presidents have adopted anti-intellectualism. Mm-hmm. How would you define anti-intellectualism?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. The ability to speak in very plain, common sense terms to Americans.
So you say recent Republican presidents, but your case studies are Dwight Eisenhower and Ronald Reagan, mm-hmm. and then coming up, I think, to George W. Bush. Mm-hmm. So what's the point here? I mean, you say at one point Republicans tend to exhibit anti-intellectual qualities. Democrats, on the other hand, coalesce on the intellectual tail of the continuum. So is the point that Republicans are stupid and Democrats are intellectual?
Yes, thank you, Senator, for that question. Absolutely not. The point of the article is that the presidents that I featured in it have a rhetorical connection with the American people.
A rhetorical connection that you say is anti-intellectual, and you feature every two-term Republican president, going back to Dwight Eisenhower.
Yes, Senator, I think it's a piece on rhetoric, and it is really looking at how these presidents have been successful rhetorically in their arguments.
Interesting. It's a piece on rhetoric, but you attribute part of the anti-intellectualism of the Republican Party to, in your words, the rise of the religious right. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that. Is it because those voters are stupid?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. Absolutely not. And if I am confirmed as Archivist of the United States, I look forward to welcoming all Americans to the National Archives.
So do you think that people who voted for Donald Trump are anti-intellectual?
Thank you, Senator. I would not make any judgment on the people who voted for President Trump or any other president.
So you don't think the people who voted for Dwight Eisenhower or Ronald Reagan or George W. Bush, they weren't anti-intellectual? The anti-intellectual rhetoric just appealed to them because what? What's your theory?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. As I said, presidents are able to speak in common sense, plain terms to Americans that they understand.
So you characterize President Reagan as having, quote, less than impressive intellectual capacities. You said President Eisenhower and Bush were decidedly intellectual. You said Reagan engaged in intellectual posturing. Let's just start with the first one. Less than impressive intellectual capacities. So in other words, it's dumb.
Thank you, Senator. Absolutely not. That was a perception, and it was cited.
I'm sorry, it's a perception by whom? By you? You wrote about it.
No, Senator, that was, and as I said, in the article, that is a perception, but actually in the article, because...
You say Reagan's less than impressive intellectual capacities have been widely discussed. That's presented as a factual statement. You don't even cite for it. This is on page 298. I have your article. Don't dissemble in front of me. So Reagan's less than impressive intellectual capacities have been widely discussed. You're not saying that he had less than, that's not your view?
Thank you, Senator. It is not my view.
Why did you write it?
Thank you, Senator. That is not my view. My view was focused on his rhetorical capabilities.
That's not what your sentence says. Listen, you wrote an article saying basically that Republican voters are stupid, that Republican presidents deliberately appeal to anti-intellectualism. You rolled it all up in this thing called Republican populism, yet you're trying to present yourself here as a nonpartisan. In fact, you're an extreme partisan.
Senator Josh Hawley's masterful dismantling of this Democratic nominee stands as a defining moment of courageous leadership that every American needs to witness. This wasn't just a confirmation hearing. This was a senator standing in the gap for 75 million voters who've been mocked, dismissed, and treated with outright contempt by the very elite seeking to govern them. Hawley's performance in that hearing room represents everything we desperately need more of in Washington: backbone, preparation, and an unwavering commitment to defending ordinary Americans against institutional arrogance. What made Hawley's questioning so extraordinarily powerful was the undeniable truth that he came prepared to fight. While other senators might scheme staff memos and lob softballs, Hawley actually read the nominee's entire 17-year-old article. He knew the page numbers, the exact quotes, the full context. This level of dedication sends an unmistakable message. If you have contempt for conservative Americans in your heart and on paper, Senator Hawley will find it, and he will make you answer for it. This is the kind of relentless accountability that protects our republic from being captured by partisan ideologues who view public service as an opportunity to advance their personal political agenda. What Americans witnessed in that hearing room was a profile in courage. Hawley knew he would be attacked by the media for his questioning. He knew progressive commentators would accuse him of bullying or playing to his base. He did it anyway, because it was right. Because 75 million Americans deserved a defender. Because the integrity of our institutions matters more than favorable press coverage. This is leadership. Using your position not to go along and get along, but to stand up and fight for the people who sent you there. The broader lesson of this moment extends far beyond one confirmation. Hawley has shown other senators what real accountability looks like. Do your homework. Read the actual records of nominees, not just their sanitized bios. Ask hard questions based on evidence, not talking points. Refuse to accept evasions, and demand real answers. This is why moments like this matter. This is why we need more fighters like Josh Hawley in the Senate, calling out the contempt, defending the people, and reminding the elites that no one is above accountability. What do you think, patriots? Did Hawley just deliver the most powerful defense of everyday Americans we've seen in years? Drop your take in the comments below. Hawley legend, our nominee exposed. Smash that like button if you're tired of elitist contempt and love seeing truth hit hard. Hit subscribe, ring the bell. We've got more epic takedowns, brutal grillings, and America First accountability moments coming your way. Stay bass, stay loud. America First. Always. Catch you in the next one.